People of Reddit, what one experience made you completely rethink how you viewed a certain individual or group of people, either in a positive or negative light? I decided to open up with my sister about the experience I had with my abusive ex, expecting her to be supportive and helpful. Instead, she tried to turn it into a pee contest about how she suffered more through her past relationship. We don't talk anymore. Sorry that happened to you. New job. Met my boss and he seemed like the coolest guy. Then I noticed how he interacted with my co-worker. Sweet old lady, just being rude and aggressive when she didn't understand something. My opinion of him changed since. My best friends and paid for a week-long vacation for the two of us at a beach, condo and all. I lost every ounce of respect I had left for her when we got to the condo. Figured out it didn't have a working elevator, and she told her aunt that she would have rather stayed somewhere nicer for 2 or 3 days than the dump she chose for us to stay in for a week. My jaw dropped, and the second we got home I thanked her aunt and haven't talked to my former best friend since. Don't plan to either. Please give more details. An assistant minister on the staff of a church where I was musician and I had become friends over time. Every Sunday he'd preach about things to do with sin, the 10 Commandments, and how to avoid temptation. Sadly, one day he confided in me that he didn't actually believe most of what he preached and that if it weren't for the salary and benefits, he'd otherwise leave the ministry and instead do something satisfying instead of feeling like a hypocrite. I didn't judge him for this, but I felt sorry for him from week to week having to stand there and preach a convincing sermon that he himself no longer embraced. Yeah, a lot of them are like that. You don't move up in the mega church TM if you are doing it for the good of humanity. 8 days before my 9th birthday, as my dad and stepmom went out to get my birthday present, a guy rushing back to work to go home early and looking at his cell phone went through a red light. He hit my parents' car, killing my stepmom and permanently injuring my dad. It isn't an exaggeration to say he destroyed my life and childhood, let alone the lives of my step-siblings who were now orphans. The money we'd eventually received from the court case couldn't erase that damage. For years I hated this guy and could never understand or forgive him. Years later, I was at fault in a minor car accident. Long story short, my windshield iced up suddenly and the car in front of me slammed on their brakes for the car in front of them. So even though I was stopping my car, I didn't stop it fast enough and hit them from behind. No injuries but still terrifying to me. After seeing how easily and quickly you can frick up and get into an accident myself, it made me feel for him. I was racked with guilt for hitting a car. How must that man feel for taking away some kid's mother? For knowing he killed someone and having to live with that for the rest of his life? It's not like he was aiming to kill my stepmom. And this was just when cell phones were starting to get popular, so there wasn't a lot of safe driving memos on not using a cell phone while driving. The guy made a stupid choice and people suffered from it, but it wasn't malicious intent, just a crappy situation. I don't know. It made me sympathize for him and let go of the anger and hate I had for him. I view him in a much more sympathetic light than I did before and forgive him. The pain is still there, obviously, but I hope he has been able to take what happened and make better choices and work toward peace and happiness. That's an incredibly mature viewpoint to take. I've heard it said that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping someone else dies. I'm glad you've been able to forgive, not because of what it did for that man, but because of what it did for you. Honestly, Reddit. At first I thought that we were a more educated online community. The posts and comments seem much smarter than what I experienced on other platforms. But after a while you realize that a lot of people are full of crap. And the most upvoted comments are not the people who are correct. Rather, people who most of the community agree with at the time. Take everything online with a grain of salt. Anyone can write anything. This exactly. I also thought people were really educated here, but at some point I realized the posts I thought were intelligent were mostly on topics where I couldn't tell the difference from intelligence to stupidity. Most of the comments on topics I am educated in are ranging from bulls to questionable at best. Always thought bikers were scary as a teenager kid, right until I saw a video about BACA. Bikers Against Child Abuse is an organization run by bikers that offer victim services to abused children in countries all over the world. Their main goal is to ensure the safety and well-being of children and the aftermath and leading up to the trial. They give stuffed bears hugs to save for later and will come to the house when a child feels unsafe or the bear runs out of hugs. They give out riding names and really take the child in as a member of the family. Definitely sends their message loud and clear. We're tougher than the person that hurt you. Really great expectation subversion, and while I definitely wouldn't pee off any biker, I no longer paint them with their mole with the same brush as I once did. Living with my step-grandmother. Growing up, my dad did not like her and I didn't understand. How could he dislike grandma? Well, when I was 15 I ended up moving in with my grandparents for reasons I don't want to get into. The first few months were fine, and then I really learned who she is. She is a narcissist. Was emotionally abused for 6 years of my life. I have set boundaries now and I haven't seen her in 9 months, so staying very low contact. One of my friends sent an unsolicited dong pic to a girl after 2 days of knowing her. Next week he got stupidly mad because she didn't want to send him a nude. When she told me that, I started hating him. You shoulda sent him a dong pic. I used to view Japan as some sort of modern utopia. I used to think Japan is what America should have been. Then I lived there for 4 months. Living in Japan is miserable. I feel terrible for any woman who is living in Japan. The work-life balance doesn't exist past 25. For you are expected to leave your job and raise a family then. If you don't, you are going to have significant troubles moving up in the workplace. Additionally, very little is expected of you as a whole. Your job as a woman is to raise babies and make your husband's lunch. Additionally, life as a man isn't that great either. Again, there is no life-work balance. Your job is to go to work, please your boss, and provide for your family. To make it worse, your company will move you throughout the country and your family does not come with you. You will work 12-hour days and crawl into the ramen shop at 2,300 to get a bowl of ramen and a cigarette before crawling home to get 4 hours of sleep. It's a miserable experience. To make it worse, Japan, as is true with much of East Asia, is extremely xenophobic. They generally respect white people, but if you are any shade different then you are at risk of having a bad time. Even worse time if you are Chinese or from Southeast Asia. I had a friend win Miss University in which the prize was a free graduation dress and she got to be the model in that year's dress catalog with 4 other Miss Universities. However, this girl is half Filipina and was not allowed to be in the catalog because only pure Japanese can be in it. I could go on and on and on about the things I hate about Japan. Yes, I would go back and visit, but to live in Japan is to give up many basic liberties that we cherish in the West, despite the fact it is a Western-based democracy. I don't fit the profile of the demographic that a cop would typically target. A few years ago, I got stopped by a cop who started screaming at me. He was the one that crossed into my lane and he accused me of almost hitting him. I just kept trying to calm him down. I really felt like he was trying to get me to argue with him, but I kept calm. He never told me what my traffic violation was. He just kept screaming. He ran my license and I turned my cell phone on to record him. When he came back he was a completely different person. Very professional and ended up not giving me a ticket. My husband is a criminal judge so I'm wondering if he googled me or something. Anyway, my perspective of police really changed. I now understand how an officer can antagonize a situation if he pulled over a young kid who may try to buck up. Local police. I knew a woman in an abusive relationship with another woman. The violence was escalating, controlling behavior was increasing, and anytime they broke up the abuser threatened suicide. Neighbors had called police a few times for domestic disturbance a few times before. I begged her to call the police for safety the next time her abuser went on a rampage. One night she finally worked up the courage and called the police after the abuser choked her. The officers arrived, made jokes, and told them to finish their cat fight outside. She spent the night at my place and told me what happened. She never called the police again. Eventually, she managed to get away from her abuser, but it enrages me how the police did not take it seriously. Not a surprise, honestly. This story is how I tried to walk away from the Mormon church. So I am a bisexual man and I was terrified to tell my parents as they were the people who protested at pride marches and such. So when I told them they basically told me that it's okay. I just can't ever be with another guy. My mom gave me books about just saying that all of that wasn't real and there is no way I could actually like guys. My dad just never talked about it or brought it up. I liked it that way, but he looks at me different now. Because of this I was an outcast when I go to church, everyone found out and everyone kind just doesn't talk to me. So I'm slowly moving away from the church and currently trying to no longer be a member. Good for you. Separate yourself from that cult. You will be glad you did so later in life. My dad is 87 and very racist. His best friend, growing up, was black. I am 90% certain he got started being racist when his friend stole his chicken in the 1940s. Hahaha. I'm Filipino and my parents supported my first career choice of being a chef because at the time, I was at the top of my class, grade-wise and performance-wise. When I told my head chef this, whom I was close with at the time and considered a friend, he said, that wasn't a very Filipino thing to do. He is not Filipino, and at that moment I thought to myself, who is he to say what being Filipino is? The comment really threw me off. At the time I was like 15-16. We had a culinary program in our high school. I was a bit bigoted towards Muslim people. I didn't wish to be, but without much positive exposure I had started to struggle viewing them positively. 2 Muslim girls work at a local shop nearby and rode the same bus I rode to get home. They sat down and chatted among themselves. Some time later, an amputee with a veteran's hat was waiting at the stop the bus was going to be getting on. They stood up before the bus even came to a stop and stood towards the back of the bus. Later on I saw the 2 of them in the shop. They seemed to bring so much joy to the people they served. They're far from the other, they are us. People are people. Some are rude, some are not. I shouldn't have even considered judging these people. We're all guilty of biases, but we should consistently be fighting them. To this day, anytime I notice I'm holding a bias, I seek to confront it. It doesn't matter what group it is. Hippies. Although they were legitimately open-minded, non-judgmental persons, very welcoming persons, they are not. They are as much superficial as what they are against. With less money. Cartman was freaking right. I was about to play a music gig at a fundraiser in a sim hippie community. It was to build something. Forgot what. When I arrived on site, I was trying to find my bandmates. So I approach a small group of people, locals. They looked me from head to toes, looking at my clothes. This woman told me I shouldn't wear jeans because of some kind of fabrics that kills the environment. Okay, sorry. I told them, hey, I'm potato quality. Nice to meet you. I'm playing tonight with band name. A man in the group asked me if I was vaccinated. I said I received a tetanus shot while I was in the hospital. He said it wasn't possible for me to be on the property because they tried to keep a natural environment. That I looked like someone who plays music only for the money. It was a goddamn fundraiser. We agreed to play for free, and he didn't like my vibe. I thought the guy was joking, but nope. I saw one of my bandmate, told him the situation about them wanting me to leave and whatnot. We argue with the guy, trying to make him understand this whole thing is silly and since it's a fundraiser, he shouldn't be bothered by that. It escalated quickly to a crappy situation, yelling and all that jazz. We got kicked out of the property and didn't play. Another band had the same problem and didn't play. They didn't raise enough money because most of the people only came for the music. I couldn't believe it and I still can't. It's really saying something when Eric Cartman of all people is right. I was bullied by the popular crowd on a trip my school took at the end of middle school. I learned to distrust that popular kids. Then in my senior year of high school I came to realize it was only a small group of what I considered the popular crowd and I got to know a lot of great people. Then I graduated and probably won't see most of them again. You just wrote a pretty darn good description of the human condition. Throw up walls to keep from getting hurt, but in doing so lock out some pretty cool people. Conundrum for the ages. Incels. I mean, I felt bad for them at first. Being lonely and unable to find someone must be quite awful. But then I went nosing around some of their subreddits and holy cow. Yeah, sure, not all of them are awful, but the sheer number of those people that legitimately hate women and go so far as to want to strip their rights away and treat them as property is staggering. More importantly, the general community encourages this, and instead of a fringe group with these views, you can find them peppered throughout relatively rational posts. It's utterly baffling. More importantly, it's also low-key terrifying how obsessed with their nonsense they are. It takes some major self-delusion to buy into their little cult. They tick all the boxes for a cult BTW, their own terminology and language, uniting against a common enemy, even a leader figure around which everything revolves, according to them. That would be Chad. Admittedly, that part of insuldom is utterly hilarious and ridiculous. I pity the people that get caught up in that stuff. The more I saw of their stuff, the more disturbing I found it all. The justice and private prison system. Watched countless people, mostly young, first-time offenders get busted for small petty crimes that ruined their life. Public defenders who didn't give a crap. The prosecution who's bent on just getting convictions through guilty pleas. How the court itself is meant to just absorb and waste time to milk money from the local community and taxes. How people are fed into jail and prison. Their life ruined completely even after they pay their debt to society. How people who aren't even convicted of anything are forced to remain in jail just waiting for their court date because they can't afford excessive bail. And of course the police force who carries out the dirty work of being androids and enforcing bad, broken, or downright stupid laws, all while abusing human rights constantly. It's sickening and in retrospect, extremely primal. It's nothing like TV or movies. And none of that is even considering the countless people who are spending 10+ years of their life in prison because they refused to take a guilty plea when they knew they were innocent and blamed for terrible crimes due to bad detective work. After I had moved churches a few years ago, but after doing so I realized all the corrupt things going on underneath the surface of my original church. Completely changed my perspective as an outsider. I was conditioned to believe that women were these mythical creatures and there is sort of an unknown manual of how to interact with them that I'm not privy to. Turns out, if you just talk to them normally, they respond normally, just like with guys. Who knew? Boyfriend's former best friend since kindergarten. We already weren't really fans of each other but kept up being nice for my boyfriend's sake. He started dating this really toxic girl who was indirectly a cause of him falling back into his alcoholism, and things started to go downhill and my boyfriend had to do damage control with all the mutual friends he screwed over. Boyfriend finally cut all ties 2 years ago when the friend was getting pulled over for another DWI, led the cops on a car chase for 20 minutes, and then tried to fight back when they were arresting him on his girlfriend's lawn. Neither of us can really look at him the same way again. Friend has tried to reach out to boyfriend to make amends and told him he's been sober for over a year and 1 stroke too, but he hasn't responded. It hurts him, but he knows that friend better than anyone and he doesn't want to ever go through all that again. We had a school trip to a mosque when I was about 13. At the time I was just another kid who'd heard too many headlines about jihadists and Al-Qaeda resulting in a weird fear of Muslims. Having been to a mosque and experienced how they want to welcome and educate other people, we were a year group of pretty much all white kids who thought more or less the same as me. It changed my entire perception on not just Muslims, but any kind of individual group of people. I used to be against gay marriage. Then one day, I went with a friend who was gay to a hospital where their partner was being treated after a car accident. The partner's parents stopped him at the door and were able to disallow him to come see the man he loved and lived with. I was outraged. Regardless of how you feel about how wrong or right what they are doing is, clearly they cared for each other. And keeping two people apart to the point that you are screaming how terrible and evil they are while they slump to the floor in tears is an act of maliciousness and vile that I never want anyone to experience. My mind changed that day, and I am now against the government sanctioning marriage at all. In fact, I think we should abandon the concept, and marriage should be fully voluntary between 2 or more consenting adults as they like. Family is what you make it, and people loving each other is the least of our worries. Glad you changed your mind. Pretty surprising that you'd be good enough friends with a gay person to go with them to visit their partner in the hospital but still be against gay marriage. Good on you for realizing that though. I've known my best friend now since middle school. Their mom was someone that I always had interesting conversations with, and most of the time the conversations were very open and I felt like I could talk to her about countless things. Heck, I'd even talk to her about things I haven't even told my own mom. I've never felt so comfortable about someone else's mom. She's someone who can spark up conversation with literally anyone and make friends flawlessly. I'm not much of a talker, but I do enjoy listening, so it was nice to listen to someone who shared the same passions as me and not feel like I'm not contributing to the conversation. But when me and my so started dating, I found out that their parents were homophobic. At first it didn't really dawn on me because I thought maybe we could hide our relationship from her mom because we're gay. It couldn't be too hard because we're already good friends. Right? I was so wrong. I did not realize how much it could hurt to be affected by someone who has different views on something. I did not realize how much it hurt to be told that I'm mentally sick in the mind for loving someone of the same gender. I did not realize how much it hurt for someone to say that I'm so insecure about myself with a normal relationship that my only resort is to date the same gender. It hurt to even think that every time I saw my girlfriend it could be the last because I would never know when her parents would start keeping us from seeing each other. But what really drops the bag of bricks on me is knowing that someone I trusted could be so hateful. Feeling discriminated is something that never really ever happened to me. Knowing that there are still people who are anti-LGBTQ+, homophobic, etc. is unfortunately just an everyday thing. Everyone knows that. But when people like that actually affect you, it really hits different. I used to think my so's parents were so chill, but now I don't think I could stand to be in the same room with them. I still respect them and try to kill them with kindness, but sometimes I really have to fight the urge to just curb stomp them. Hasidic Jews. Not Reform. Not Orthodox. Hasidic. I live one town over from Lakewood, NJ, home to the highest concentration of Hasidic Jews outside of Israel. Growing up, it was drilled into my head that these people weren't people. They were somehow lesser, like undomesticated animals. I was a smart girl. I cried in school while watching the presentations given by Holocaust survivors. But having these words reinforced every time my mother drove us through the town, it got into me. I casually lurked Stormfront and listened to Prussian Blue. As I got older, I toned down and didn't wave my opinions like a flag. But I read books like Unorthodox, and it only confirmed my feelings. These people are animals. Earlier this year I entered and graduated an art for women with PTSD. In the program I met a lot of women from the Hasidic community. They were smart. They were strong. They were resilient. They were individuals who are playing the crappy hand that they were given. Just like me, I broke down crying in my therapist's office. How could my parents, mostly mom, raise their children like that, teaching their kids to deny another humanity? I don't, and won't have an answer. I'm just thankful I learned otherwise. So, genuine human connection is what changed my opinion. I am male. Just for information, I had a friend, not gonna say his name. He got into my classroom in 3rd grade. We were not close friends. Then, in 6th grade, I spent a little time with him. He was so nice, just generally awesome. Once, I went to his house. He was so mean to his brother, but I figured, oh, they're just joking. Finally, in 8th grade, we were close. Both of his brothers were also in the classroom. He was such a butthead. Eventually, he started being mean to me. I'm a bit shorter, and my sense of humor is really weird. Therefore, I became the retarded midget. He also called me gay a lot. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm not. That hurt me so much. And jerks have a tendency of becoming popular, so a lot of people knew me as that. He would also physically and mentally push me around. At this time, we also had an awful teacher who called us monsters regularly. I started believing it. I told myself, shut your mouth. Nobody cares. You are a worthless, stupid idiot. Until the 3rd to last day of school, when he said something I don't have the indecency to share, then slapped my butt. That did it. I whipped around and yelled louder than ever before. What the heck is wrong with you? You can just make racist or full comments and then slap my butt and pretend everything is fine. He looked me in the eye and smirked. Okay, he said. He didn't stop. It was heck. When I got out of 8th grade and into middle school, we parted ways. I erased him from my phone. Since then, he's gotten my actual, nice friends to try to convince me to add him back. I said no, he's a jerk. They understood and talked to me about my issues. That's how I know I can trust them. I still fear I'll see him in a Walmart and force me to add him back. Silly, I know, but I have reasons. I'm still struggling with self-hate because of him, but I still feel much better. To answer the question, I now have trouble trusting anyone until I know they are a friend, and a good one. I make a note to be kind, because if I can keep anyone away from self-hate, then I feel happy deep down. If you see that butthole in public, just blank him, dude. You haven't got to speak to or engage with anyone you don't want to, especially such a mean freaking bullying fuckpeddle like that. I used to think nerds were the most uncool, lame thing in the world until I became one myself. When I was in elementary school, I was a part of the cool popular girls clique. I always thought I was cooler than everyone and thought that nerds were lame and that they shouldn't even try to associate with me. This boy used to play with Pokemon cards during recess, and me and my cool friends would take his cards and toss them around and laugh in his face. But he was still always nice to us, and I thought he was a freak for that. We thought we were so cool with our sliding phones and fake nails, but all we were bullies. As me and my friends got older, I started to feel more and more out of place. My friends wanted to go out and party, play spin the bottle, get drunk, and joyride. But I wanted to stay home and play video games, read comics and mangas, watch animes, and watch superhero films. I never said anything and just endured it cause I felt like a nerd and nerds weren't cool, right? During my sophomore year of high school, I met my dream boy. He was the most handsome guy I had ever seen. Tall with beautiful brown eyes, a wonderful smile, brown hair, and on top of it all he was incredibly sweet. But he was a total nerd, which was not okay in my friend group. I was mocked for even finding him attractive. I started to see my friends were judging me for liking this guy who was genuinely nice to me despite my bad rep for being mean. He was the first person to find out my nerdy nature and took me on a date to see Batman vs Superman when it came out, and I geeked out so hard and felt like myself for once. I finally wasn't on a date to see some lame movie about partying that I didn't like. When my friends found out I had gone on a date with him, they laughed and said I was infatuated with a loser, and TBH I was. And I decided enough was enough and told them that if they don't like him, that's fine because he's for me, not them, and I'd rather go see him run the track any day than go to another one of their stupid parties. He was on the track team, LOL. I ended up falling in love with him not too long after. We became official and I lost my cool girl status, lost my friends, and became a target for bullies, all because I just didn't fit in with that group of people anymore. But I didn't care. I was finally fully embracing me and was loving it. Everything I had thought about nerds was totally wrong. Oh, and that guy who I used to tease for the Pokemon cards, he and I are now the best of friends. I dropped social status pretty quickly, but it taught me that being a nerd isn't lame. Rather, it's way cooler than being popular and pretending to be someone you're not. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.